Fiancée by Kate White discussion. Mitch. And I'm sure more will be straggling on throughout the evening. Hi, everyone. We have Kate White here with us tonight to discuss The Fiancée. I'm gonna just do like introduction stuff now while we give it a few minutes for more people to join. But
Tina, is that a fake background or is that a real background?
Am I unmuted? Yeah, I wish it was a real background.
It looks real. It really does. And I know Michelle's in Miami, so I thought, hey.
I know it would be great, but it's just that way every time I'm in a meeting, I feel like I'm on vacation.
Not bad.
Hi.
One more. Sorry, I'm still admitting people. Okay, Kate, before we start, I'm gonna say that I am an OG fan. I used to read your editor's notes when you were the editor of Cosmo. If you don't know, Kate was editor of Cosmo for 14 years, and this was like my Bible when I was,
oh my God,
looking for my first magazine job.
Oh, you know, Michelle, that book sold so great. And I loved women coming up to me. My favorite story was a woman who came up to me in Pottery Barn and she goes, "Thanks for the $40,000 raise." I thought, that
wow.
How could you ask for more?
I did not have that luck. But this was great. So I had never read one of your fiction novels. I was very excited to read this. This was amazing. I'm gonna let everyone introduce themselves, but I would like to say that I'm not a huge fan of thrillers myself. And for it to keep me till the end, and I did not guess who it was at all, was amazing.
Oh, thanks, Michelle.
So if everybody can just like say your name, where you're from, so Kate has like an idea of where we're coming from, and maybe like one thing you liked about the book. Who wants to start? We can start with Jenna. You want to start?
Hi, I'm Jenna.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I am in Indianapolis, and Allie, who's on this group, was the one who invited me. I saw her post something about it on Instagram. I love to read. I have never read one of your books, and it was awesome. So I'm really glad that I found it through Allie. So
thank you so much.
I'll go since I'm also Jenna and I thought it was me and we're both connected through Allie. So we might as well just go next.
What?
So Allie's your biggest recruiter, Michelle.
Thank you, Allie.
I'm Jenna. This was my first book I read of yours and I thought it was fantastic. I actually just finished it on the plane ride home about 30 minutes ago. So right on time.
Good.
I really enjoyed the fact that you had no idea what was coming, or at least for me, and it was a fantastic finish. So thank you.
Oh, thanks so much.
Tina.
Me, hi. I'm Tina Formosa. Again, it was first time I've read one of yours, but I loved it. So now I want to go back and read other ones of yours. Had me captured the whole time. And I'm from Miami, born and raised.
Great. Oh, by the way, if anyone does want to read another one, Amazon, because it was picked as one of their top thrillers from last year, Have You Seen Me is free on Kindle if you have an Amazon Prime account.
Awesome.
Oh, cool.
So just anyone who does, you can have it for free.
Thanks.
Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I am from Miami. This is the first novel I read of yours. I am a suspense thriller type of girl. I like things that keep me coming back and hooked, and this definitely did. And I put my background, a nice garden. Right?
That is perfect.
It was good visualization. I could see the house. I could see the gardens. You know, it kept me. It was really great. I enjoyed it.
One funny thing is we have a home in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, weekend home. And so I kind of just put it on steroids and imagine, you know, what if it was this huge estate? And I needed like really special gardens because Claire is a landscape architect. So you know what I did? I remember this article on Anna Wintour's gardens. If you know, she's the editor of Vogue, and there was a story in the New York Times, and you can go on and see it because everyone, even if you don't subscribe, even if it's not your local paper, you can go. I think you get a certain number of articles for free. But she had this British woman do these spectacular gardens for her at her weekend home. And I just kind of ripped it off. You know, I just thought, okay, I'm going to have a bunch of these big boxwood globes. And I borrowed some of the language that she used in creating my own garden for the book. So Anna Wintour, wherever you are, thank you.
That's a nice tidbit. Allie, since you're the recruiter, apparently.
Hi, I'm Allie from Miami. Yeah, I love to read. I really like thrillers. And, you know, I think it's fun when, you know, it's so rarely I feel like throughout my life, aside from school, am I reading the same book as anyone else? So it's so nice to read the same book as friends and get to talk about it. And, you know, so I like that experience and I'm glad we're getting to do that again.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's funny how when I was growing up as a baby boomer, we had that experience with television shows because there was a limited number. And now, you know, once in a while you'll have a mayor of Easttown and you know other people watched it, or there, you know, certain shows like that. But then other times you're just there's just no connector. So it's great to have people reading the same book. At least it's like the good old days with television shows when there was appointment TV.
And sometimes it gets you talking about topics you normally wouldn't, like on your day-to-day life.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but it says Ozzy's iPad.
Hi, my name is Shirley Franco. Ozzy's my boyfriend. I borrowed his iPad. I was also born and raised in Miami. I really enjoyed the book. I love the thriller shows, and sometimes it's just nice to switch to a book and just kind of get off the TV for a little bit. So I just really loved it. It was an entertaining read. You know, it's kind of one of those you can't put down books. So really enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny. Kate, I actually follow you on Instagram, so I was super thrilled when Michelle announced this as her book pick. Yeah, I've read The Secrets You Keep, but what I love about your Instagram, and I want to tell all the other girls to make sure they follow you, is that you also promote other authors in the genre, and you talk about other books that you think are great. And I've read a bunch based off your recommendations. I love the thriller genre and everything. So thank you for that. Thank you for promoting other authors, because it definitely opens us up to, other styles of writing. And I think it's great. And so really happy to be here. What I loved about the book is that you didn't tie up everything with a bow. You still left us with questions about how certain things ended for certain characters. And I personally love that.
I thought about that because usually you try to tie everything up. And I thought in real life, she might never know whether the father-in-law really was having an affair. She may suspect it was, but he's not necessarily gonna, it would be so fake if he went, yes, I love Jillian and I'm sorry she was murdered. So I thought I would leave a few questions. And as she says in the book, that's often the case. You don't get everything tied up for you.
Yeah.
But I hope I didn't leave anything really important unknown. I think that, you can sort of guess, like you can guess that probably Kara and her marriage to Marcus probably did go through a tough period. You're sure they did, because even if she wasn't 100% sure he was meeting with Hannah, she knew something was off. And you can pretty much guess that the father-in-law, even if he hadn't started to have an affair with his assistant yet, had done that, was thinking about it, with toying with the idea. Isn't it true that so often our instincts are right, that, when we think something is a certain way, there's a good chance it really is.
Yeah.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah. One more intro, Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy. I'm from Miami, and I loved it. Your book had me on the edge of my seat. Just when I thought I knew, I know what's going to happen, I would turn the page and I was like, nope, I have no clue now. It was awesome. I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks so much. There's actually a little bit of a Florida connection with the book, in that my best friend from college lives in Delray Beach. And she had told me a story. We've been friends ever since college. And she had told me this story when she was working as a fundraiser for major universities, that always stayed with me. She had this boss, and he gave her, it was a new boss, and she'd been there already. And he kind of put her in charge of this one big project. And he was busy as a typical male, doing his own thing and, trying to shine in his own way and not paying much attention. And all of a sudden, what she was doing was really working. So the president of the college got intrigued and wanted to know more. So her boss said, well, why don't we divide it up? I'll do the first half of the presentation, and then you do the second half. And so she said, great. And they rehearsed, and then they meet with the president of the college and some other key people. And he does the first half of the presentation, and then he just keeps going and does her half too. And this was back when you didn't even have as much capability to going to somebody higher up at HR and complaining about bullshit like male behavior like that. But it always stayed with me. And what you do when you write is often use little snippets in your brain that are experiences you've heard of, experiences you've had, and then you change them a little. So that's what gave me the idea to have Hannah go up and read the poem that what's her name? Oh my God. I'm now on to the second book I'm writing after that particular book. So I this happens to me where I lose track of the characters. But so anyway, that moment where Hannah gets up and steals the thunder with the Mary Oliver poem, I totally stole that from my friend, having had that experience.
Oh, that's interesting.
I was so mad at her for doing that.
Yeah.
And it was hurt for her. I was like, oh my God.
I was like waiting for something to happen with the poem, because it kept referencing like her practicing and her trying to show game. I'm like, something's gonna happen. They're gonna ruin it for her. Something's gonna happen when she gets up.
Yeah. Would you girls just give me 1 second to check my chicken in the oven?
Cooking. She warned me that she will get up a couple times to check on dinner.
I love it.
She's a real life lady, just like all of us. Anybody want to share any other thoughts, like while we wait?
I was gonna say hi to Tina. I don't know if you know me, Tina, but the last time, it's Jen.
Oh, hi.
So the last time I posted a picture of the book club, like 5 people messaged me. Oh my God, how do you know Tina? I'm like, she's just in the same book club. So I work at Sobe at Somerset Bay, where I used to work with Christy Alfonso.
Okay.
Doesn't work anymore. And Karina Walker. she's my partner, and I'm Maddie's teacher, and they're like, oh, so I was like, oh, I'll say hi to her the next time, the next book club.
Cool. Hi, I've been to all of them but one. I just missed one that I didn't read the book.
Thanks so much. I promised my husband some roast chicken tonight, so I had to combine the two things.
Oh, no.
Well, that was something else I was going to say about the book. All the food that you talk about and how she like lays out the spread and everything. It's like, I love doing that and entertaining for my family. I'm an event planner for my work, but yeah, I was just like, I could see that. Like, you know, I was very like drawn to that part of it.
Well, I never realized this, but one day I got a call from Mystery Writers of America, and I'm a member, and this was a few years back, and they said, would you be willing to edit the Mystery Writers of America cookbook? And I said, what made you think of me? Because I was the editor of Cosmo. And they said, yeah, but also you have so much food in your books. And I love to eat. And I hadn't realized until she said that how much I put food in my books. And this one, you know, at moments I wondered, you know, am I overdoing it? But it's a big part of the kind of privileged family that Summer has married into. Food's a big part of it. And it's going to be part of a week of vacation on the estate for sure.
I personally wanted to go stay there for vacation and have breakfast at the little sideboard.
Yeah. Oh my God. I actually, years ago, I was dating this guy, and he had gone to boarding school, and his best friend from boarding schools, the parents were so wealthy. And I went and stayed there for a weekend at the parents' house, and they had breakfast like that.
Oh, nice.
They had this sideboard where there was a toaster on the sideboard. So if you picked a bagel, you could toast it. And I bought one of these for myself. There was a pitcher for juice with this little sort of tube in the middle of it where you put ice. And the best part was she actually had these little boxes of cereal, like you could get cornflakes or Rice Krispies. And I just thought, one day I want to grow up and I want to have a sideboard like that. Oh, it was just, you know, that was my experience with, wow, the very rich are different than you and me. It was just so cool to go to breakfast there.
Kate, before we get into more about the novel, would you mind sharing with us how you came up with the inspiration for the book and your writing process, like the creative thing behind it?
Sure, Michelle. What I generally do is start with a very small germ of an idea. Sometimes it is something like ripped from the headlines. In fact, the story about poor Gabby, it's just been so heartbreaking. And there was a story a number of years ago about a woman who had disappeared jogging. And so often it is the guy. Statistically, it's almost always the guy. But I started to wonder, and in this particular case in California, it wasn't the husband. She had been kidnapped. And so at least as far as we know, because she came back alive about a month later with a tattoo on her and very stressed out. But I thought, that's really interesting. What if I play around with the idea of a woman who goes missing jogging, and did the husband really do it? So sometimes it is based on a headline. Other times it can just be based on a very vague idea. And in this case, I started to think about, what would it be like if somebody new comes into a family and upsets the ecosystem? And I toyed with a couple different possibilities, but I like the idea of a fiancé, and the other women very established, but then all of a sudden there's somebody new and really attractive. And my husband was a news anchor for many years, but after 9/11, he decided to leave and do something totally different. And he had been an acting major, double major in college, acting and broadcast journalism. And so he started doing theater in New York. And my daughter, she was in the acting conservatory at Boston University, and then did her graduate work in theater or movies in the UK. So both of them have told me so much about that world, and I've gone to see all my husband's plays and her plays. So I thought, You know what? I like to bring as much verisimilitude as possible into the characters' work lives. So I thought that could be interesting. It's not anything I've ever had any experience with, but I've listened to enough stories of theirs that I think it could be legit. So then I just kind of start building. And one of the things a lot of authors say they use is the phrase "what if," where you start with, okay, what if this new woman comes into a family and begins to upset the ecosystem? What if somebody ends up dead? And what if this and what if that? And it's pretty much the way I always do it. You may have heard from some of the other people who've done your book club, the idea of the pantser versus plotter. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
That I don't know if it's as common outside of the mystery thriller genre, but basically, in my world, people talk about being plotters or pantsers. And a plotter is someone who plots out the books, and a pantser is someone who writes by the seat of their pants. And I just could never do that. And I feel like I need to know where I'm going. And I don't plot the whole book out, but I know who the killer is right from the beginning. I know why. And I have a little bit of sense of how I might try to disguise the killer, but still give some legitimate clues. So I then generally work about 4 chapters at a time, where I kind of sketch those out in a notebook. And then I get to another point. And one last thing that really helps me is something I learned from this woman named Laura Day, who wrote a book called Practical Intuition. We interviewed her for a magazine I was working for, and she said, one of the things that's great if you're stuck creatively, and I've actually found this is very good if you're stuck in any way, is you put the question out to the universe. And it's not like it's going to answer, this is what you do, but it kind of primes your subconscious to be receptive to things. And so once I get through 4 chapters and I know loosely where I'm going, but I need to start having some plot points, I'll put a question out there. I'll just say, well, why would she do that? Or what might happen to her if she does that? And then all of a sudden I'll be looking at something and the idea will come to me.
I'm going to say that if you left clues that Wendy was the killer, I missed them all.
Oh, okay. So let's see.
Because I thought it might be Gabe, if anything.
Well, I wanted to throw a little shade at Gabe, but for Wendy, you can sort of tell that she's married to a little bit of a stick in the mud. Her husband is just, he's a dermatologist. He's kind of set in his ways. They've had some fertility issues. And when Wendy is a little bit secretive about her work, at one moment when Summer runs into her, she quickly gets off the phone. There's a little clue. If you're a regular mystery writer, this is something people might note of, that she mentions she has clients in Palm Beach, and the mother-in-law mentions that she's been down to Palm Beach. So anyone who reads a lot of thrillers would probably go, I wonder if that means anything. Then there's the whole thing with Wendy lugging her around that big bag of hers, but also Wendy being in the library and being caught off guard. And she says her iPad is broken, but then later Summer sees her reading her iPad at the pool.
Yeah.
So that's just a little clue. If you remembered, you would go, I wonder if Kate made a mistake because she said her iPad was broken, or could that mean something? So they're subtle, but they're there a little bit in case, just to play fair.
It was really good.
Yeah. It wasn't one of the more, I feel like she wasn't such a developed character. So I wasn't even thinking, like, she wasn't in my radar. Like I knew some things about her. I remember she ran into her like laying down on the patio, like if she was like not feeling well. I remember that, and I was like, oh, I wonder why that interaction happened.
Right.
And then I remember her working a lot. Like, wasn't she like a museum or something? She worked like in an art.
She ran her own art gallery that the father had.
She was all about that and trying to get
right.
That.
And also, she goes back and forth. First, she's going to be on Team Summer about Hannah. Then all of a sudden, she's Hannah's buddy. So, yeah, it's always, you want the balance, and it's tricky because sometimes you feel like maybe you didn't give enough, but you don't want to give so many that it's brutally honest through the whole thing.
One of the questions I had for everybody was, what do you think of Summer's relationship with her in-laws? Do you think it's a typical one? I personally found that the sisters-in-laws weren't as close as I would assume that you would be. Like, I'm very close to my sister-in-law, and they kind of felt like strangers in a house in some way. Like, they were cordial and friendly, but they didn't seem like they interacted much.
Yeah, I feel like, I've had 5 sisters-in-law altogether because of growing up with 5 brothers. And it's funny, they're a couple that I'm really close to. And one of my brothers who I was so close to died last year, my younger brother, very tragically. And I talked to his wife almost every single week. And at least I talk to her every week, at least once a week. And then I have my youngest brother is married to this just really dynamic woman who I love. But then like my brother, Mike, is married to somebody who is, I don't know as well. And so even within one family, I can see the difference. And I think it's interesting, with the in-laws, they're Ash and Claire, they're very wealthy. And I've dated people over the years before I married that came from families like that. And in a sense, sometimes they create this sort of magical setting.
Yeah.
Like the family I was talking about with the sideboard. If you went to their house, it was magical. It was out in the Hamptons, which you may have heard of. Well, they had a beautiful townhouse in Manhattan, but this house in the Hamptons, they had a guest house and a tennis court and a pool and all those things that the Keatons have. But on the one hand, it's magical, but on the other hand, there's certain things about that set up barriers. And so I think that it wasn't unlikely that Summer would respect her sisters-in-law and be cordial with them and friendly, but maybe not feel that she could be really close to them. And for Kira, it's not so much a race thing. It's the idea that she grew up very without siblings, and it's sort of overwhelming, and so she kind of keeps internal. And I think that sometimes you can have sisters-in-law that the family fosters everybody getting along, but the Keatons, I think, for all their this beautiful setting and bringing everybody there, the kids are a little bit dependent on the parents, and it can be awkward at times.
Yeah.
I got the feeling, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I also got the feeling that it came up a few times with the sister-in-laws and even the friend of Claire, that she was very like judgmental and had her opinion about all of them, and Summer was the only one that felt that connection. So there could have been also not animosity, but a little bit of either jealousy or disdain from the other sister-in-laws that Summer was clearly the favorite. As a mother for boys, it's like her, even the ex-daughter-in-law was like, oh, I never had that relationship.
Right. I think that one of the things that happens too, when you see, even if the other two sisters-in-law weren't aware of exactly how much the mother was a puppet master. I mean, Gabe's wife figured that out because she hired a private investigator. There's still a sense of it, and they're minding their P's and Q's. They like being in the setting. They like being around the family, but they're cautious and they're careful. And so I think that lends itself to none of the three sisters-in-law really totally letting down their guard.
Or as friendly as Claire seemed to be, because I really liked her throughout the book and like the descriptions of her, I was very surprised about the private investigator part of it and how involved she was in her son's picking of a mate or trying to help those relationships succeed or fail.
Yeah, I've known a couple women like her who are sophisticated and come across with just a really elegant sense of warmth. And, she calls people darling, but she was a tiger mom, and she was, she was controlling, and she loved her sons fiercely. And she wasn't going to let things happen to them that she didn't want to have happen.
Yeah, you can see how like she takes control of everything. Even I'm sure she either assumed that her husband was having an affair or something, that she changed her will.
Yeah.
So she wanted to have make sure everything in her life was under her control.
Yeah. Do you know women like that? I've known a few.
I was gonna say, do you relate to your mother-in-laws like that?
My mother-in-law has passed away, and she was pretty difficult, but in a whole different way. And but I was married briefly in my 20s, and I stayed friends with my in-laws. They were lovely people. Their son wasn't so good, but they were great. And in a way, she was a little bit like a softer version of Claire. They were really involved in their kids' lives. And so probably I borrowed a tiny bit of that, but they were very good to me. And in fact, it's funny because one of my sisters-in-law, who I'm still friends with, I think she used to feel that I was like the favorite. And not only did I get a beautiful 12-piece set of silver.
Oh, wow.
But when I got divorced, I was told, "Oh, please keep it as a memento from us,
as a parting gift."
Yeah, I was definitely the favorite there.
Along that same note, can I ask, what was there a specific reason for her to have? Because Claire clearly had no idea that she had that great connection with her mother-in-law, as opposed to the other girls. Was there a reason that she was meant to stand out like that?
Well, she was really dazzled by Claire and her own experience having, even though she never knew the brother who died, it cast a pall over her family, even though her own mother, who was a social worker, tried to, not let it. It's hard not to have that happen. And so, as she says, the Keatons had me at, please come in and feel at home. And she was sort of dazzled by this family and kind of blind to some of it. And because she and Claire were so connected, she couldn't quite see that Claire didn't treat the other two girls the same way. And I think Claire liked Summer as she begins to think about it. Or as the friend tells her, you rescued him. He had the rug pulled out from underneath him. He was married to somebody who ditched him. And then, he's sort of a single dad, not particularly experienced because the kid was only 2 years old. And he's terrified he's going to lose custody or have a restricted custody because he's kind of inadequate at it as much as he's trying. And so Summer comes along, and at the time she's, a struggling actress and still waiting tables, but she really loves Henry right from the start, feels very connected to him, and is going to do everything in her power to make it better for Gabe too. And so Claire, who might have been a bit judgmental of Summer's job, right away feels like this is salvation for Gabe.
Now that you brought up Gabe, can we discuss Gabe and Summer's relationship? They were giving me anxiety the whole time. I kind of felt like he was really rude and dismissive to her, but then I also felt like she should have been a little bit more comforting and not so self-centered in her jealousy and search for making Hannah the guilty party. So I think they were both at fault, but
yeah, I think Gabe, you can tell they have a nice relationship. Like as she says, as soon as they arrive, she discovered he's brought her bag upstairs and hung up her dresses. And he's a nice guy. He's a good guy, but he is a little short with her. But as she says, you know, her inner critic has been getting on his nerves. And having had a lot of experience with actors through my husband's work, you see that they're always fretting. They're worried. You know, my husband didn't have that because he'd had a long career as a TV anchor, and you know, acting for him was fun. But when you're making it your career, it's hard. In fact, one of my favorite stories is he was in this great little play called Soccer Moms from Hell. And we had the cast for dinner. And I said to him, there were 4 young people in the cast, all in their early 20s. And they were so talented. I said, what percentage will make it of that group? And he goes, maybe one of them.
Oh, wow.
And one of them was Amy Schumer.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah. And we would go and see her then in comedy clubs in New York as she was trying to make it. And it just was so exciting to see her career explode. But it's tough. It's really tough. And so Gabe is kind of up to here with the inner critic. So maybe he should have been more patient and understanding. But Summer is the kind of person that cries wolf some of the time. You know, she says, oh, I probably sucked at that, but she did a good job. So right away, as soon as she complains about Hannah, he thinks it's more about her fretting unnecessarily.
I also think that he was probably just caught up in everything going on with the business too, that all that other stuff was just not important to him at the time. You know, he was worried about she's not really working, or, you know, if she's not successful, he's got to keep it up. And I think he just was, again, dismissive of her a little bit, maybe because he was just so focused on what was going on with the business.
Yeah, he had this big setback with that. And then his mother dies and she's a little bit caught up in herself. And I think that they both forgive each other afterwards. And I think that's kind of normal. Sometimes somebody you're in love with can let you down and you're kind of surprised by their behavior to a certain extent. But then if you look at it closely, you realize, well, you know, they were in a tough moment and I wasn't acting the right way. So I made him a little bit less of a star in terms of the relationship that maybe every woman would want, but I felt those things happen in relationships.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like she didn't give him what he needed after finding out that his mom had died.
Right. Well, you know, and I think, excuse me one second, just going to check on the chicken one more time.
Anybody have any other comments?
Michelle, why did you pick her book? Like, out of curiosity? Like, I know that you always like read a lot and have a lot.
I follow her on Instagram, and I had gotten the advanced copy. And I'm not a big fan of thrillers, but I'm a fan of hers from before. So I was like, let's check it out.
Cool.
It was really good. Huh?
Worked out perfectly.
You guys like it?
Yeah.
Did anybody else think that it was going to turn on Summer? Like when the cops showed up, I'm like, this chick has been researching all this poison on her computer.
For sure. I got that
like,
too.
she got the pot, like the pot from the kitchen, and she's searching.
I was like, they're gonna investigate her because
like,
what
it's
she's
gonna
been
go down
Googling.
on her. Yeah,
She was Googling the poisonous plants and all that stuff. I'm
yeah,
like,
I thought
Yeah,
it
all
was turn on
her
her
fingerprints, her search history. She was like going
thought
down
it was
the path.
her.
like, hide the computer.
I thought it was her at one point. I'm like, this is all in her head and she's the one doing it.
Yeah.
I guess I felt Summer didn't seem at moments as sympathetic to him as she should have, but she had made this incredible discovery. And it was a really awkward situation for her because, as she says at one point, it's like, you know, it's like telling him, I think your mother was bit by a vampire bat or something. It just, she was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
The ladies were saying that they were waiting for it to turn on Summer because she was doing all the Googling and touching the pots and everything. And they were waiting for her to be the one investigated.
Yeah, right. In fact, you know, that is something that as you start to write this, you start to play with different ideas. Like, what if she ends up being suspected? But you go down certain roads in some books and not in others.
Do you guys think that jealousy is what drove Summer so fixated on Hannah, or was it really like the clues that she found that made her think it was her?
I think it might be a little bit of different things, because I think that she was protective of that family. So I feel like part of it was that she was protective of her brother-in-law. And, you know, the fact that, you know, he's dating the ex, and that's a red flag. And then she's lying, another red flag. But then definitely some jealousy, because she's in a Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, no, she definitely had some envy. And one of the things about that whole world of acting, which is very different than the world I was in magazines, is in magazines, really good writers rose to the top. The best young editors on your staff rose to the top. There was a woman, did you ever hear of a book called Luckiest Girl Alive?
We just read the book before.
Yeah, we did that.
Two books before.
Really?
Yeah.
She worked for me at Cosmo, and she was fantastic. And so I gave her books to read and really encouraged her to do fiction, and gave her this sort of fiction job at the magazine, writing this sort of fiction blog for us. And somebody like Jessica is going to stand out within minutes of working for you. And maybe in the beginning, her writing's rough. Oops, wait, hold on.
That's so funny that she was boss.
What are the odds?
Oh, I knew Jessica had worked for one of the women's magazines, but I didn't know she was her boss. That's pretty cool. It's like comes full circle.
I know, right?
She reminds me of the editor on the Bold Type that like fosters the writers to like go a certain path.
Yeah. Sorry. I'll tell you this little cooking trick I learned. But somebody like Jessica, right away, she's going to be noticed before too long. And, you know, now she wrote the screenplay for the movie, and the movie's going to come out next year. And it's just so exciting. And she's living out in LA now and really has made a fabulous life for herself. She just finished up the third book. In the world of acting, the cream doesn't necessarily rise to the top, because it's really hard there's just so much competition, and a lot of it really is being in the right place at the right time. And so it's easy to get envious of somebody and knowing that you might be as good as them, but they just happen to know somebody who opened a door, for instance.
Now that you said that, you were Jessica's boss and kind of nurtured writing side of her. I had picked that book because I knew it was coming out to Netflix recently, and I knew she worked for women's magazines, but I didn't know it was under you. And with that comment, you reminded me of the editor of the TV show The Bold Type.
Oh, yeah.
You seen it? That she kind of like caters to where the strengths are of the different writers and editors so that they succeed in different sections of the magazine.
I didn't really look much at that show because it came out after I left Cosmo. And what I didn't really like about it, it seemed what I did see seemed very hokey, but
yeah, it is, but it's funny.
Oh, but it was such a misrepresentation of the magazine business, because the magazine business, as wonderful as it was, and as much as I loved it, and I just went to an event with a lot of my former wonderful bosses at the Hearst Corporation, the former CEO, the new CEO. It was just great. Magazines, because look at your generation, discovered they wanted to do things online, and there were other ways to gather your information. And I don't resent that at all. I got to be in it during its heyday and really enjoy it. But it ended. It's ended. I mean, I don't know if you saw this. Mary Claire just folded. It's print edition. Oprah has folded. Just so many magazines are over. And by the time that show came out, magazines like Cosmo, which it was loosely based on, were nothing like that. It was happening. And I just thought, that's not fair. It'd be one thing that they said, this show is set in 1998, but they made it sound like it was current, and there's all this glamour and this fashion closet. And there was that when I was there, but it does not exist now like that. And to me, that's not fair to do to young women who might feel like there's still some jobs like that to be had. But Cosmo, when I was there, oh my God, it was so much fun. I'm still very close to the people who work for me, the main people, like my beauty editor, and for the Fiancée, for Bookstagrammers, we gave away some MAC lipstick that my former beauty editor, who's now works for Estee Lauder, she was so great. She got us a whole bunch of lipsticks as a donation. And my former fashion editor, my former executive editor, my former brand director, I just love them all. They were, Cosmo attracted a very over the top kind of person, because it was a magazine that was about going big, really, and breaking the rules. And we hired a lot of rule breakers who were a lot of fun to work with, for sure.
Cosmo was my Bible during high school.
Oh, I'm so glad, Michelle.
Glad that all those magazines have folds, because I used to look forward to them in my mailbox and sit in my room and glance, and they're not the same online anymore.
One of the great things for me about Cosmo is that I really learned so much. We did so much about male-female dynamics. That was the most popular thing, because I think women felt, I know he's different. I just explain him to me. And one of the best things I learned, because this was reinforced by all the experts we talked to, is that one of the things you want to do in a relationship is always keep a bit of mystery. That there's been this idea that, you want your partner to be your best friend at everything. It's nice, but what keeps infatuation alive is a certain amount of mystery. And there's a woman that we used to interview a lot named Helen Fisher, who studied infatuation, and she said that part of what attracts us to on a primitive level to other people is a sense of mystery. And it's why men like women when they wear a smoky eye, because it looks mysterious. And when you think about it, we don't want to mate within our immediate circle. It's healthier to mate outside our circle. So something that's a little bit unknown is intriguing to us. And what she always said is, be a little bit mysterious. Don't, it's not that she's saying lie or anything like that, but just keep a little bit of mystery. don't give everything away. Be intriguing, because when you do that, it releases dopamine, which is what we experience when we're infatuated. And one of the most fun things I ever did with my husband, based on Helen Fisher suggesting it, was just have a mystery date every week, where you had to come up, each person had to come up with a crazy mystery date. And so learning things like that at Cosmo, I found it really fascinating.
Now that you say the allure of mystery, I think that was a lot of Hannah's allure. Nick's allure to Hannah was how
right. Yeah. And she had that confidence too, that some women have, that just they're hardwired with it. They don't have to learn it. You know, with Hannah, she was definitely not faking it with her confidence. I have to recommend, before I go, a book that I'm reading right now that I love so far, 56 Days. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's a great new thriller. It takes place in Ireland, but it's based on a couple in the pandemic. And it's
I haven't heard about it.
Yeah, it's really a good read.
It was worth it.
I'm only halfway through, but I love it so far. So a lot of books I find, I don't know, do you find this? They kind of jump the shark at the end, where you find that the twist is almost like too crazy to believe. Have you had that experience?
Or very predictable, which is also not good.
What are you reading next week?
Our next book, well, I haven't announced it yet, is not a new release. It's It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover.
Oh,
so good.
Yes.
So good.
And I actually picked the one for after this one also. It's going to be Wish You Were Here by Jodi Picoult. And that's based on quarantine, and it's not released yet. It's going to be released at the end of November.
Gosh, Michelle, you're doing such a great job with your choices.
Thank you. Have you read this one?
No, but I'm familiar with it. And I'd love to read it.
I saw that it was published in 2016, and it's been on the New York Times bestseller and USA Today still to this day, like this past month.
Really?
10 in my book. Oh, I love that book so much.
You read it?
Yeah.
What's the gist of it?
From my it's a love story kind of twist. From my understanding, there is abuse in it at some point. So
yes.
Wow.
I don't even want to reveal it, but yeah, there's two men. It's the dynamic. It's really the story of one woman and her journey through finding love and relationships and struggle. And it's up, down, beautiful. I love it. I cried. I laughed. It was great.
I haven't read it yet because I haven't finished the book, but at the end, the author has like author notes relating to the book. So I think there might be some personal ties to the story.
Oh, wow.
Because it says, don't read this till after you finish the book.
Oh, wow.
It's so good. She actually has a really good thriller. It's a little bit crazy.
Verity?
Verity? Oh, yeah.
Oh, I read Verity.
Yeah,
It was really
Verity
good.
was crazy, like brain, like one of those, like really, like.
The same author.
If you're really sensitive, I wouldn't read that one, but it is out there.
It was wild.
I had to put it down at times. I'm like, nope, I can't finish it.
I have a question for Kate. Sorry to be a little bit of a tangent, and I don't know your history, but I'm just curious, being that you were, an editor and you've written so many books, did you write while you were working at the magazine, or did you, finish, retire at Cosmo and then go into writing, or how did that come about?
That's a question I think, is so fitting for the times, because I think a lot of us during this whole period have started to think a little bit about, do I reinvent how do I come out of the pandemic? But for me, when I was growing up, I loved writing, but we didn't have the internet then, and I didn't know that you sort of have to pick a lane. I wrote plays, I wrote mysteries, little mystery stories. I wrote a play that was put on in my high school. I wrote for the newspaper. I made my own little magazine and put it out. and I didn't realize, oh, you can't go to New York and do all that kind of writing. And so when I was in college, I realized, I got to pick a lane, and I love magazines. And I won this contest when I was in college called the Top 10 College Girl Contest in Glamour magazine. And I was the cover girl that year. And it was just so great. And I got a job at Glamour. So my lane was sort of picked for me. But part of me had always wanted to write a book. And, I wrote the nonfiction book that Michelle mentioned that was a bestseller. But any Nancy Drew fans here?
Yeah.
So I wanted to write a mystery. And so I was the editor-in-chief of Redbook, and I decided I would write a mystery on the side. And then I got called in one day by my boss, who was head of the magazine division, and said, "You're taking over Cosmo." So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to write the mystery. But I got it out after I was running the magazine for a few months. And the nanny who dies in that story, I had written that she was found on a copy of Cosmo. I'd written 4 chapters. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take that as a sign that I'm going to try to do it. So I wrote, I started getting up really early before the kids were in bed, out of bed, and writing for an hour every day, and then a couple hours on weekends. And partly I did it to have a plan B, in case I got fired, because the magazine business was pretty perilous. And, but then I got to a point where I could see, as much as I love my job, I could see magazines were unfolding and that unraveling really, and it was not going to last. So I just said, this will be my last contract. And I ended up staying an extra year because they wanted just a little bit more time to hunt for the person who replaced me. And so they basically had 3 years notice, and I kept the secret for the most part, though I told a few people who work for me so they could start to get their ducks in a row. And then I left 9 years ago this August. So I'd already written a bunch of books while I was at Cosmo, and it's so much nicer to do it now without this massive full-time job.
I bet. How is the transition from writing for magazine to writing fiction?
It's different because they often say when you're a journalist, it's about telling rather than showing. And with fiction, you've got to show rather than tell. So it's definitely different. And for the first for the first few months, I had to write, really burn off the need to tell. I rewrote my chapters over and over again. So they weren't so obvious, but well, I know you ladies, you probably want to go on and do something fun in Miami, or I'm going to get that chicken out for my husband. Oh, I'll just tell you the quick tip I read. This is so fabulous. If you're roasting a chicken, you use the thermometer, whether it's pieces or the whole chicken. Once it gets to 165, you turn off the oven. You put a teaspoon or so of water in the pan and pop it back in for 3 minutes, and it makes it really juicy. So,
Kate, before you go, do you mind if I take a screenshot photo?
No, absolutely.
Thank you.
I have the book for once.
Okay, I'm gonna do a couple. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. And I'm gonna do one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Kate, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Thank you for sharing your personal experience as well as about the book.
And Michelle, send me the picture. Would everybody be okay with me if I posted it?
Yes, we posted too. Yes.
And guys, follow her. I promise she gives the best book recommendations, I swear.
One more, sorry.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. You're all so beautiful. So great to meet you. And
I have one quick question. If they were going to pick one more book of yours, other than the one that you already said that's free on Kindle right now, what would you suggest as the next read?
The Secrets You Keep, it just went back for another printing. And it's had many printings, and that was like maybe 2017. But I feel like a lot of women like that book.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kate.
Guys, and I'll have one coming
you.
out. The Second Husband comes out next June.
Next June?
Yeah.
We'd love to have you back if you're open to it.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Enjoy your chicken.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And if anybody's buying this on Books and Books, we have the code again. So Bella gets 20% off.
Great choice. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.